Hey there, pioneers. Welcome to the Reflections Cast, designed to immerse you in teachings about goal setting, dream building, and all things dynamic living. Join us for inspiring conversations as we unwrap these topics and offer insights for seeking positive change in your life. Here's Season 2, Episode 1, The Fear of Change. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back for another season of the Reflections Cast. We are so glad to have you here. We are going to finish this talk on goal setting this year. I can promise you that. And it is going to be an amazing year, and I can't wait to get started with it. But before we begin, I just wanted to say that my name is Steven.
And I am Melody. Welcome back, guys.
And we are so pumped to get this thing started. This next couple of episodes are really powerful, really great. A whole new area of discussion about goal setting and why people don't set goals. And it's really just a great thing to break into. I've got some questions. I'm excited to get into it. Melody, are you excited to get into it?
I am very excited. Let's kick this year off.
All right. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody, please leave some feedback for us if you have anything that you wanted to discuss about some of the points that we brought up, or if you're just enjoying the episodes and you want to let us know. We really appreciate it. Algorithms really appreciate it. That means more people will find out about the podcast. But honestly, we're just happy to have you here, and we're just having a great time. So let's get into it. Melody, before we transition to Skip, I did want to catch up on everything that's been going on. Can you tell us a little bit about Pioneer Circle and some of the other things that Circle A is up to right now?
Absolutely. I would love to tell you about Pioneer Circle. We have been having so much fun since we kicked off our community of pioneers, which is essentially just anybody who wants to be equipped with encouragement and teaching and videos from the leadership team of Circle A and from myself. It's been super, super fun to create all these videos and to collect all of this wisdom from just some of our awesome LTs that have taught me so much over the years. Now they're getting to teach my kids, and it's just amazing. So if you are interested in checking out the Pioneer Circle, you can go to circleacamp.com/pioneers and check it out there. But we have had some really awesome stuff going on, and we actually just announced our coaching topics for the next 5 months. So as part of the Pioneer Circle, we do coaching calls once a month. We do a call for our students and then another call for our parents. And we go over some really good topics. So I was actually going to share the upcoming topics because I don't know, when I hear these topics and I think about talking with a group of Circle A leaders about these topics, I just get so excited. So our January call is called We Always Have a Choice, which you guys might have heard that a time or two. And then our February call is called The Power of Our Words. Our March call is called Listen Up, In and Out. That one's going to be about listening. Our April call is going to be How to Work with Difficult People. That's an important topic. And then our May call is going to be Leave It Better Than You Found It. So I'm just so excited to, do the work to prepare these calls. I'm excited to listen to some of our other leaders who are teaching on these calls. And I'm most excited to invite my kids to be a part of these calls, because our goal with the Pioneer Circle is really just to resource young people to live well through the changing of an age. Our age, like our modern era, is changing, but also their age is changing as they transition from child to adult. And so being able to work with them in these moments is really special and really awesome. So we're super excited about the Pioneer Circle and about the summit that's coming up in June. Don't forget to register.
That's awesome. I mean, I love the Pioneer Circle for many things, but I really do like that we do get those perspectives of so many different topics, and you get the perspectives of so many different people, because one of the things that we're going to be talking about with this series is, does it really matter? Does all this content, all of this perspective, all of this stuff that we've been talking about, does it matter? Could you just live a normal life without goal setting or all of the things that we talk about? And I just love that with something like Pioneer Circle and Circle A, you get to see, you get to talk to, or you get to experience the perspectives of people who have lived their whole lives with this stuff and people who are just starting to live their lives with this stuff. So you can really get an idea of, yeah, it really does make a difference and it really does matter. And, when Dad was just starting out talking about dynamic living, I'm sure he didn't have the credibility to say like, no, this will change your life. But now with something like Pioneer Circle, you can really explore that aspect of it. And I love that.
Yep.
Well, again, we mentioned it in a previous episode, but when we complete this series of goal setting, we will release it as a complete series for Pioneer Circle to be able to download and have access to, because we love it. And we know that the people on Pioneer Circle probably want to have access to that as well. And so it will be there and available for all of you. But I think it's about time we hear from Skip. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Well, here's Skip talking about the fear of change.
We've been talking about goal setting and about making dreams become reality. And up to this point, we have been involved in Roman numeral number 1, which was gain the knowledge of the process. So the first part of all of this is the knowledge of it. And most people in the world never get an opportunity to gain the kind of basic foundation about goal setting that we have talked about in these sessions now. But we move on this evening to Roman numeral number 2. And Roman numeral number 2 is all about understanding the workings of the process. Whereas the first one is all about knowledge, this one's all about belief. When we began to build belief in the process, we began to take possession of the principle of goal setting. So a couple of things that we want to just chat about this evening in regard to understanding the workings of the process. First of all, letter A it would be, in big letter A, capital A under Roman numeral 2, would be, why do people not set goals? The vast majority of people in the world do not set goals. And there are probably many, many, many reasons for it. I've isolated on just 7 of them this evening that we'll chat about for a few minutes. Number 1, and it's kind of a part of what we've already talked about in establishing the foundation for goal setting, but number 1 is the fear of change. If you are afraid of change, then to set a goal to take you outside your comfort realm, to move you on, which requires changing, is not something you're likely to do. The people who are afraid of change, who fear change, are constantly trying to find out how to just keep the status quo. I've been able to adjust to where I am now in my life. Why would I want to complicate it by trying to go further? Is the thinking that begins to set in. I don't know exactly when it sets in. The psychologists tell us it's somewhere between the age of 15 and 25. So relatively early in life, people are already beginning to fear change and settling in for the status quo and not doing anything that will take them outside that zone of their life where they have developed a certain degree of comfort. Many are threatened by change. I guess you would have to be honest, and I would have to be honest with myself and sit and think through that question. Do I fear change? Are there certain kinds of change that I fear? Are there some changes in life that I welcome? And then are there others that I fear? And if I find some that I fear, why do I fear them? Is it just change, or is it something about that part of my life that reveals a weakness, an uncertainty, a lack of confidence, and therefore to try and change it all in that area, I am afraid to do that, whereas others I may have been successful in. You see, again, what I'm saying right now emphasizes what I closed with last night, and that is that the process of goal setting is not a simple, easy process when fully understood and applied. Deciding what you want, writing it down, those are relatively easy things until you begin to dig deeper into what does that really mean. So if a person, as many do, as I have on occasion, if a person discovers that they have been a goal setter, they do some goal setting, but at a certain point in their life, they stop doing what they were doing. You know, the people that write down the 10 things on a 3x5 card and then tell me they put it in the desk drawer and they didn't see it for 10 years? Why is it that they backed off from it? Likely there is an underlying fear of something that's going on in their life, and the first possibility is the fear of change. Many resist goal setting because it may be too uncomfortable, moving from the rut where they have become comfortable to a higher level where they are subject to more challenges of life. Is that true of me? Is that true of you? Only I know that about me, and only you know that about you. I can't judge for you, but I can challenge you, as I challenge myself frequently, that if there is a hesitancy in your life about real goal setting, as we're talking about it, take the time to ask yourself the question, do I fear change? Am I a person that just likes to kind of cocoon and snuggle in? There are many who tell us that as people age, they get more and more desirous of cocooning, of just kind of settling in and not being so adventurous with life. You can imagine how surprised I was then when my mother told me for her 100th birthday she would like to parachute. Skydive, yeah. She wanted to go skydiving. I did, however, talk her out of that, thinking that maybe that could have happened at 90. At 100, I think the better part of wisdom says we'd like to have her to 101, 102, 105, not end it in a skydive at 100. Although, yeah, the doctor thought she was really serious. Her son did too, momentarily. But, pardon me?
He wrote it in her chart.
He wrote it in her chart, that's right.
Every time since. And me, like.
Yeah. You're not letting her do that, are you? No, doctor. No. But most people, as they age, they cocoon. At what point does that or will that happen in my life and in your life? Where we simply just began to back away from the uncertainties of change. See, the interesting thing about it is that we fear change because of the uncertainty of change. But by trying to just cocoon in the status quo, there is change in that. And there is certainly a huge amount of uncertainty in that. And you increase your fear of uncertainty by trying to make everything more certain. Did I say that right? I did. I don't think I've ever said that before. I'm glad it's recorded. I can listen and get that down. I may even take notes on this talk. So, it may be too uncomfortable moving from the rut to a higher level of challenge and experience in life, and therefore people will not set goals, but just try to remain where they are.
All right. Well, we were not kidding when we said we were hitting the ground running with our podcast for this year. We're just jumping right back into this stuff. And I will tell you guys, these next few episodes that we're getting from Skip kind of take it from here and even amp it up a couple more notches as far as just like really challenging us, really stretching our thinking, really helping us out of our comfort zone spaces. So this one definitely sets the tone for that. And I'm excited to see how I'm going to change and grow because of it, and to hear how you guys are going to change and grow because of it. So this first episode, he kind of recaps where we've been. So we started with kind of gaining the knowledge of the process of goal setting and talking about the fundamentals. And now we're kind of shifting to the workings of the process. So focusing on internalizing the principles of goal setting. So he starts out with some reasons why people don't set goals, and talks this week about the fear of change. And he unpacks that, like that's not just a simple idea. It's actually a pretty complex idea. This idea of the fear of change. So there's some different pieces he talks about. He talks about the comfort zone, which is essentially, settling for the status quo due to the comfort it provides. And it kind of just being a safety net of familiar space for us that we hesitate to step outside of. And essentially he says, for somebody in the comfort zone, they're saying, I've been able to adjust to where I am now in my life. So why would I want to complicate it by trying to go further? Then he talks about another reason why we might fear change is if we feel threatened by change. If that idea feels intimidating when it requires moving outside of our comfort zone, that intimidating feeling can really be a significant barrier to goal setting. And so he encourages us to ask the question, do we fear change? And then why? Is there something about our fear of change that reveals something about us, some uncertainty or some lack of confidence? Then he talks about the complexity of goal setting also being a reason why people may fear that process. So he says, the process of goal setting is not a simple, easy process when it is fully understood and applied. And I appreciate that he, says that and just is honest about it, because I think that helps us also take into account the investment that we're going to make when we kind of enter this process. And he kind of talks about some of the depth and the intricacies when you dig deeper into the process of goal setting, and says even experienced goal setters might give up. So then he talks about a very interesting word called cocooning, which is a tendency to seek comfort in the familiar and resist stepping into the unknown. And, paradoxically, this inclination to make everything certain increases the fear of uncertainty. And he says, by trying to just cocoon in the status quo, there is change in that. And there's a huge amount of uncertainty in that. And you increase your fear of uncertainty by trying to make everything more certain. I thought this was a really interesting, kind of turn of the gem of this whole comfort zone idea and this whole fear of change idea. And I wish we had more from him on this, because it's left me with a lot to think about, this idea of cocooning. So that's the general idea of what he talked about in this episode. Stephen, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I loved it too. And when I was, taking notes on it, there were times where I would write something down and then I would rewind him and I would be like, is that what he said? And I'd listen to it again. I was like, yeah, okay. So the process of goal setting. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it is simple to understand and it is complex once fully applied. And I appreciate that he's willing to say hey, you might understand that you need to decide what you want and write it down, but that's there's more to it than that, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes action and it takes dedication, and there's intricacy to this. And so I really appreciate that. And then of course, yeah, the cocooning idea is I'm getting more uncomfortable because I'm so comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more uncomfortable about not being comfortable. Like that's a great point to bring up about the process of getting out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I've got many questions that really revolve around that I'd love to discuss, because I feel like there's certainly more room for discussion. So are you ready for getting into the questions that I have this week?
Let's do it. I will do my best to discuss some ideas of answers anyway.
All right. So as always, all my questions seem to have like 20 different sub questions within them, but I've tried to organize it a little bit better this time. So I have my question, and then I have my further context question.
All right. I like that.
So the question is it always important to get out of your comfort zone to properly set goals? And then the further context would be, by finding an area that you're comfortable in, you can build confidence, reduce stress, reduce anxiety, minimize the possibility of risk of losing like maybe your job or hurting your body. I know that that's something that has definitely happened to me a lot when I try and push myself out of a comfort zone of maybe something I have a goal for in terms of like some physical thing that I want to reach, and I end up hurting myself, and I don't like that. So if I stay in that comfort zone, I still feel healthy. I just not quite reaching that goal. But also staying inside that comfort zone, it can free up your time and your mental energy. So do we need to fear the comfort zone as he proposes in this? And I don't think he proposes that we should be afraid, but
right.
He definitely proposes that we should get out of the comfort zone.
Right.
So that's the first question.
That's a great question. And I feel like I don't have the full answer in this moment. I'm going to have to think about this, but I can give you my first reactions. I think that essentially when we're talking about the comfort zone, we're talking about who we are without any more work to grow, right? So if we want to grow in any capacity, whether it's physically or in our job or in our pursuits of whatever it is, in order to grow, we do have to get out of the comfort zone. We can't grow inside the comfort zone. But you are right. There are things we can do in the comfort zone, like you're saying, reducing stress and anxiety, or minimizing risk, or maybe building confidence. So I would say that I think that there are certain habits that you can practice in a comfort zone that can do those things. Like, for example, I'm just thinking of a physical example, like walking. Okay. Probably most of us are comfortable with walking. Walking, we would consider something in our comfort zone, the actual practice of it. But if we were to decide I'm going to make a habit to walk 5 miles every day, then even though the actual thing is in the comfort zone, the habit of it is still moving us outside of our comfort zone. But maybe it's moving us in a way that is a reduction of stress and anxiety, or a way that builds confidence, or a way that minimizes risk. But I do think, if we're trying to grow in any sort of capacity, we do have to be out of the comfort zone, or else we won't grow. We won't make progress. I think that, there are certain seasons where part of our life can be in a comfort zone while we're focusing on growth in other parts of our lives. I think that can be a good thing, to have some things kind of more like in autopilot state while we're, pushing really hard in one area. But I do think, like, overall, as humans, we really are created for growth and development. And I think we find joy when we figure out the rhythm of moving outside of our comfort zone just enough to be healthy. And I know I've mentioned it before John Acuff, his new book, All It Takes Is a Goal, he talks about the comfort zone, the growth zone, and the chaos zone. And, if we push ourselves to the chaos zone, that's when we really are, risking those things like hurting our bodies or losing our jobs or things like that. That sounds like the chaos zone, not the growth zone. The growth zone is just those couple steps outside of our comfort zone to help us slowly grow. So that's what comes to mind. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what comes to mind with this question.
I love it. I think that's a great response. Okay, so moving on to question 2 then. There's so many questions that could be asked about this topic, so much more depth that I want to go into. But I guess one thing that just sat with me a little bit was when he was talking about getting stuck in a rut and how that can kind of disable even experienced goal setters. And the idea of slipping into a comfort zone where you feel good, you feel like you might be revitalized or less stressed, or, you're not taking risks. When does that turn into the danger of a rut? How do we identify when we've been in that comfort zone too long, that maybe it's moved into something that's not only bad for us, but could be more difficult to get out of now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And I think it's a really good question. I wish Dad were here to answer it. I think I'm thinking of my own life experience. And, I think when I found myself in the comfort zone about certain things, it's always felt like it's just a matter of a choice to move out of this comfort zone. So I didn't, I'm not running right now. I am running right now. But if I were in a season of not running, I would feel like all it takes is a choice and I'll get out there and run again. It's a choice. I think a rut in my mind, with what you're describing and what he talked about in this episode, is kind of like where you feel stuck. And maybe there are layers that have built themselves up over time to where it's not a simple matter of yesterday I didn't go running, but today I'm putting on my shoes and I'm getting out on the road. It's a bigger matter of I would have to peel back several layers of complexity of, people or relationships or job commitments or things of that nature. Because I've kind of dug a trench here in this comfort zone at this point, and there have been layers that have been placed on top of me. And so those layers, I think, sometimes feel so hard for us to peel back that we feel trapped. And so I think it's a matter of just being really self-aware to know when we're in a space of comfort, are we choosing that as a season of rest? Are we choosing that consciously? Or do we feel stuck? And if we feel stuck, that's not a death sentence. We can peel back layers, but there may be several goals that have to be put in place to get to the point where you're even able to set the goal that you want to set to move you out of the comfort zone. So, I think that that's a place where it may take some guidance. It may take some coaching. It may take a friend or somebody who can kind of help us look at our situation and see why we feel stuck so that we can layer by layer kind of climb out of that rut and get back in a space where the growth that we want to experience is just a choice away. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love it when you take one of my questions and you can give me a response that's more interesting than what I was trying to ask. And I love that. I think that was a really great response. And I think that there's a lot to get out of that. So moving on then to the thing that I think both of us were intrigued by and want to talk further about, which is this idea of this paradox. So my question is, how do we avoid that paradox of fearing change while seeking certainty in a status quo? Is it that we simply don't ever want to seek a status quo? And if we do that, wouldn't that just make life feel like a constant state of failure or chaos? If we can never find a calm because we're constantly trying to achieve something else, does that create a mentality that could lead to this feeling of inadequacy or failure?
I feel like that was a lot of questions. Okay.
Sorry.
No,
the question
you're good.
Is it, should we always be trying to avoid the status quo?
Right.
I guess kind of falls into the same question as question 2.
Yeah. Well, okay. So he makes a couple really interesting points about this in his short little talk that we listened to, because he talks about this idea of the more we seek certainty, the more we fear change. And it's very interesting because he's right that there really is no such thing as certainty. And so if certainty about our circumstances is our goal, we are going to push ourselves into a more anxious, chaotic, inadequate state, because that's not really something we can achieve in this world. I just read a really interesting book, and I don't even know if I fully recommend it, but I'm going to mention it. You can decide for yourself if you would like to read it. But it's a book called Same as Ever by Morgan Housel, who is the guy who wrote The Psychology of Money. Mm-hmm. And it's a book about the things that don't change. But the interesting thing is that everything he brings up as something that doesn't change is more of it's a cycle. Like it's a cyclical, experience of life. And basically the thing that doesn't change is that everything continues to change. Do you know what I mean? And so it's a really interesting book. I probably have to listen to it again to fully absorb all of it. But what I took away from it was trying to seek certainty and control over our circumstances, or trying to, predict the future, is just really a waste of time. And what's really the better use of our time is to decide the people that we want to be in spite of our circumstances, and then put our effort and our goal setting into becoming those people, because that is something that we have control over. And that is something that can help us, kind of fight that fear and fight that chaos. And I think fight that feeling of inadequacy as well, because it's not really about an arrival of becoming this grand person. It's about simply the choices every day that we make. And our goals are just they set us on a road in the midst of the uncertainty, leading us towards the people that we're created to be. So, I think it is a paradox. And this thing he talks about with cocooning is really interesting too, because that essentially he's saying some people kind of purposely try to build a life in the comfort zone so that they don't experience change. But I feel like the people who I observed in my life who have done that have experienced a lot of heartbreak because that's not something that's possible. So I think it's really kind of a cool invitation to be brave and to live outside of our comfort zone, because the fact is we very well may find ourselves very uncomfortable even in the middle of our comfort zone, because circumstances happen to us that we can't control. So we might as well get out there and grow. That's what I took away from it.
I love it. I'm constantly reminded of the idea of surfing. When it comes to getting into that comfort zone or getting out of the comfort zone, you work so hard to get into that wave, but the idea that you could freeze that moment and live in there is just not feasible. There's going to be the end of it. There's going to be the crash. There's going to be problems. You're going to have to avoid that one dude on that other board. You're going to have to try and turn around and get back out.
Yep.
You can't just stay inside that barrel forever or that wave forever. If you could, it would take away the meaning of trying to get there in the first place. It would take away the thrill if that was just all it ever was.
Yep.
But it would also thoroughly increase the fear that, oh, but what if it does end someday? So anyway.
Yep. That's a great analogy.
It's just something that I'm always thinking about when we talk about this kind of stuff. So in terms of this episode, I think that we're nearing the end. Are there any closing thoughts that you have about this part or about starting this new season of the Reflection Cast before we leave our listeners this week?
I'm excited for this, guys. I think that, like I said, I think these next few episodes are going to be a little bit challenging, in the way that Dad is challenging, like the best way. So I just invite everybody to kind of jump into this and do some self introspection. And I think we're going to find ourselves on a path to grow. And I'm excited to grow together.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us on another season of the Reflection Cast. And remember that your support does mean everything to us. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget, hit that like button, write us a review, or leave us a voicemail or an email. And please share this episode with friends and family or anybody who you think could benefit from the discussions and the ideas that we're talking about here on this show. We believe in you. We are committed to helping you thrive on this journey of discovering all you were created to be. And until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and pass it on.